Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Chelsea Waves. As we move into yet another dreaded international break, albeit the third and last of the year, we look back on yet another mixed week for the Blues. The draw away at Qarabag in the Champions League, followed up by a very important win in the Prem versus bottom place Wolves. We'll also hear from friend of the podcast, Huw Carter, in section 3 to give us his quarter season analysis and predictions for the rest of the season.
An eventful week as ever. Net positive, I'd argue. But let's start with that 2-2 draw against Qarabag. Jokes aside, it was a tougher game than many predicted. We did call that it would be one to watch. But I'm not sure I predicted that Azerbaijani super team absolutely carving through us at will with immense energy at times. I want to call for some drug tests.
Yeah, I did call that this would be a trickier fixture than probably most were expecting. My score prediction was 3-2. We were very close to that with that Buonanotte effort from about 35 yards in particular. I think this game was a story yet again of rotation, producing uncertain performances, as we've discussed in recent weeks, particularly since the Ajax games and the Wolves Carabao Cup game. But yeah, largely a pivot to that what we've started to call the settled B team, with a few exceptions on this occasion, with the likes of João Pedro, Cucurella, and James starting in this game. But what I'm seeing, I think, in within this B team is just too many bad performances. If we are going to have success with this heavy level of rotation, we need everyone on top form consistently. What, but we saw from a defensive perspective, Hato in particular, I think, struggle in that game. There was a one error leading to their equaliser initially, and I think what I would call a very harsh handball decision against him as well towards the end of the first half. Tosin struggling as seems to be the case recently. In particular, from midfield perspective, we saw the very uncertain midfield duo of Santos and Lavia once again starting in this game, and Lavia breaking down after 10 minutes, which is something I know we're going to cover in a bit more detail shortly, but we know that's not necessarily a duo that has demonstrated synergy and chemistry over the last few weeks when they've started. From attacking perspective, we saw, I think, Esteval demonstrate his supreme qualities once again, and a fantastic cut in on his left foot and the finish. But huge bugbear of mine is Gitten's performance, totally anomalous and outdone once again by Tyreek George, who I didn't see do anything in that first half. So I think I like the principle of rotating squads. We saw it had big success for us last year, albeit the Conference League, but this approach relies heavily on these B team players stepping up, and quite frankly, they're not currently. And I think this result is not terrible, it's not catastrophic, but it has made life more difficult with regards to qualification in that sort of top eight, particularly with Barca, Napoli, and Atlanta next.
I think, as you say, it's almost a Carabao lineup or a Conference League lineup for a Champions League game. I saw a stat that Maresca has made more changes game to game than any other Prem manager. I think it's 5.7 changes per game. Simply too many for kind of Champions League competition. We mentioned kind of the Tosin Hato disaster class. In fairness to both of them, this is the seventh centre back pairing trial. So this is their first game together. And this is a position that relies on stability, partnerships being built. Again, we discussed kind of last week looking at other teams, Arsenal often the benchmark. Saliba Gabriel is the absolute foundation. They played Prague in the week, despite having potentially 4, 5 centre backs that would start for us. They stick with their starting duo to kind of build solidity, build confidence in that backline unit. And I would argue that for a centre back, particularly those lesser games, they should be less intense than a training session even. There isn't a question here about fitness, which brings me to the point. Is this kind of on Maresca rotating from a fitness angle, or is there kind of forced hands? Is there a pressure to maintain market value from the SDs? Or even kind of more cynically, is Maresca point scoring? Is he kind of saying to the board, I wanted centre backs after Colwell's injury. This is what you've given me, and it's not working.
I don't think he's necessarily doing that at this point. I think he's got faith and confidence in the players at his disposal. I think this was just a reality check that we are playing I've used the term quite a few times over the last few weeks, a ragtag lineup, particularly from a defensive perspective, with Hato and Tosin, starting together for the first time. It seems to happen at least once a week at the moment, where we've got either a midfield duo or a defensive duo starting together for the first time, and we saw the result of that, particularly in this fixture, which on the face of it looked straightforward, one that we should be getting 3 points in, but we know the Champions League is never simple, particularly when you travel 2,500 miles to Azerbaijan, and they're fully up for it. So I think it's a bit of a baptism of fire or a learning curve for Hato in particular, and we build and we move on from it. But warning signs for this approach moving forward in terms of switching up the squad quite so consistently.
So positives, as you said, the electric Estevao, cut above anyone on the pitch, world class manipulation for the goal, and absolute live wire. I also want to touch upon that strong finish from Garnacho. Didn't have a great game, but I mean that's a serious contribution, and he's carried that form ultimately into the Wolves game. You kind of touched upon the draw, sort of leaving us wanting. Benchmark for 24-25 for the top eight was 16 points and 11 for the top 24. So I would wager now, only taking 1 point there, the pressure's on. We probably have to beat Barcelona for any chance of the former, and then go into those tough Italian away games needing to take wins. But hopefully it eases some of the fears of the latter of failing to make the top 24, particularly with that Paphos game coming up.
And I think there's nothing to fear in Europe, to be honest. We've spoken about the overall decline, pardon me, in quality across Europe with top teams. I don't think there are many of them. Most of them reside in the Premier League. There's not much to fear from Barcelona these days. We've seen their recent results, particularly in El Clasico a couple of weeks ago. I know they might have Pedri and Rafinha back, but we've seen that high line. I think we can go into that game with confidence and look to get the 3 points.
Famous last words. So let's move on to Wolves. A good win, a win that takes us up to third place in the table. Potentially a kind of fortuitous time to play Wolves. I believe they've just appointed a manager in Edwards. We played them kind of rudderless. Job done after a kind of mixed bag first half. I kind of noted disappointing João Pedro and Delap deployed against Wolves, bottom of the league, and we looked a little bit blunt. But ultimately, Garnacho's quality showed, unlocking the door with two excellent assists. I think he is the main positive here.
Uh, Agreed. A very important win, and it was a good night, wasn't it, George? We had fun. I love that Saturday 8 p.m. Kickoff time. Honestly, I don't think there's too much to read into this game. It was familiar struggles in the first half, breaking down a very stubborn five at the back as we expected from Wolves, and that resulted in one of our favourite topics, a very sort of dull atmosphere at times in the bridge on Saturday. But eventually, our persistence paid off, and that was in large part as a result to Garnacho really pushing the Wolves' defence, and that terrific cross in the sort of first phase of the second half towards Malagusto, who got his first. Don't think it was even his first Chelsea goal. It was his first senior goal entirely, which just was a great moment. And for that third goal as well, that just unbelievable pace he demonstrated to cut it across to Pedro Neto. Few worries still. I think Delap is not hitting the ground running after that hamstring injury, which is definitely a concern and one I'll be keen to discuss with you. But Esteval comes on and demonstrates his quality once again and gets that assist literally with his first intervention in the game, which is a definite positive. But what was your reading from in terms of Delap in particular, I think, and Joao Pedro, who did score but looked rusty, I think.
Yeah, as I mentioned, kind of a blunt performance from them too, a goal from João Pedro, but ultimately kind of not posing enough threat, not taking enough shots on target, which against a Wolves side bereft of confidence, rudderless, no kind of defensive solidity, it is worrying. Let's give them the benefit of doubt. Pedro potentially carrying an injury, Delap rusty coming back from injury. Hopefully they'll come back replenished for the international break. I think we have to give credit where credit's due. It was a top performance from Enzo. Clearly, he heard last week's show, and as we've said, long may this continue. There's an element of wolf tax, but I mean, he played some brilliant splitting through balls. All I'm asking for, let's see it against Barcelona, let's see it against Arsenal in a couple of weeks, and hopefully, this is the new Enzo.
I think we all want that, but we'll keep our reservations for the time being.
So we've just had confirmation that Lavia will be out for a minimum of 1 month, minimum being the ominous word there. A quad injury this time, sustained just 4 minutes into the Qarabag fixture in the Champions League. So this is a rival in the summer of 23. He's missed 75% of Chelsea games. He's yet to complete 90 minutes and he's yet to score a goal for Chelsea. It's deeply disappointing.
I would have given up faith on him a long time ago based on those stats alone, but I think the differential with Romeo Lavia is that we've seen his quality demonstrated even when he's at low levels of fitness in huge games. You think back to Anfield away last year, Tottenham away, Aston Villa at home. He's shown us that he is a mercurial talent, and hence why I've been willing to show him patience that perhaps I haven't been willing to do with Wesley Fofana. But I think this might be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back because this was supposed to be his time. You know, we saw the precedent set in terms of conditioning with the likes of Reece James recently. He's been on this individual program where he's been getting up to speed very slowly. We managed his minutes, and now he looks fit and ready to go. But this is I think a huge blow for him and for us because he's a crucial part of the squad, and we've seen that the burden this has, particularly for Moises Caicedo having to come on after 4 minutes of playing the game that he was supposed to be rested for and Enzo Fernandez as well, with Dario Asujo out as well. So it's wreaking havoc in the squad, I think, George.
Absolutely. I think I saw a stat that Caicedo's played all but 45 minutes of the season for Chelsea, which is very much kind of in the red zone. I think the gutting element is we've seen glimpses of that top talent. We've seen Liverpool, Spurs, Villa performances coming to mind. And kind of discussing in the context of that midfield, discussing Enzo last week, I was kind of very quietly confident about a midfield of Caicedo, Lavia, and Enzo headed into those Barcelona Arsenal ties. So it's absolutely gutting. There's a couple of kind of old adages that come to mind. One, availability is the best ability. He's not there, he's not available, and we're relying on him, and we can't play him. But kind of further to that, is a player always better when they're out the team? Kind of often discussed over the years, but we have kind of clearly seen that evidence. I think my kind of main gripe, anyone who knows me will know I've kind of been perennially injured myself. I'm not one to throw stones, but my main gripe is that there's a theme here of Chelsea signing players, signing injured players at a premium price point. So you got Lavia 60 million when he was injured, the Fofana 75 million post a leg break comes to mind, and then also looking back the Nkunku ACL. Are we kind of underestimating how difficult it is to come back from those major injuries?
It's a devastating blow. My only challenge to that point is that he is still 21 years old. We've seen his quality. Uh, Are we willing to give him time and let him recover at his own pace and we'll apply the most advanced medical science we can within the club? Or do you think this is curtains for him at Chelsea?
I think the nature of kind of the 7 year contract kind of works both ways here. I think we will give him time. His market value is probably low. We've seen the example of Reece James. But with that 7 year contract, 75K a week, you got kind of financial security. Don't want to read too much into the individual, but is there kind of an overly comfortable, cushy nature here whereby there isn't that real incentive to drive? Equally, the lack of kind of leadership, experience in the team. There was often kind of reports of Thiago Silva recovery, including kind of a hyperbaric chamber. Even Jamie Vardy, despite his cans of Red Bull and an omelette before a game, speaks of oxygen tents, speaks of serious kind of strength and conditioning just to maintain that form. We've got examples. We have to stick with him. The quality's there, but ultimately, I think it's going to be down to the player just as much as the medical team to get him back out there on the pitch.
And we've seen the projection right now from the medical team of 1 month. We know, using our favourite term, tax, Lavia tax, that probably means he's not coming back till April, May, if we're being optimistic.
I think multiply by three seems to have been kind of the evidence so far. Let's just hope that Cole Palmer timeline is accurate, if not Lavia's. Next up, the international break. So, in the absence of any opposition, we've got fellow Blue Huw for a quarter season review. Welcome, Huw. How are we doing, mate?
All good, boys. All good. Yeah, excited to be on the pod. Thank you very much for having me. I feel like it's the closest I'm getting to a call up to the starting 11 at Chels. So I'll take it at this rate.
Nice to have you here.
We're,
Thanks for
we're
joining.
buzzing to have you, mate. And we kind of spoke previously of echo chambers. It's great to hear kind of more Chelsea insight. So let's kick off. How are we both feeling about our start to the season?
I feel like, yeah, George, we've been to the pub before a few games. We slightly differ in opinion. So I think I'm waiting to see what you say. But I've gone and given it a solid 7 out of 10 so far. I think this is going to differ. I've got some thoughts behind it. I've got some reasoning. So first two being some big wins so far. Liverpool, massive win, massive high off that game. And then a cheeky, be rude of me not to mention the cheeky win against Spurs, which I was there for as well. So it's even the better when you're there. You properly soak it in. So I think those two are proper good wins. And then I think the form within the last couple of games is getting to a point where my issue with Maresca was a bit of the leaky at the back, defenders not looking good. But I was having a look and I saw on Twitter the other day that we've only conceded 0.3 XG in the last two games. Now, one of those is Wolves, and this Wolves side is like horror this season. But one of them is Spurs. So I'm starting to feel like with Wes being back, we're looking good, and like we've got some key injuries. So I think if you take everything into account, Delap being out for a bit, Levi being gone, which I think is huge. Levi's looking great in the Club World Cup. Of course, be rude not to make Cole Palmer. So I think on that front, I actually think we look all right. You've got the United loss, the Brighton loss, and the Sunderland loss, though, that do tarnish it. I mean, it's not higher. But if you were to add those results in, even if a few of them were draws, we'd be looking close to the top, if not at the top. But this Arsenal side are making me slightly nervous with their defensive record. I don't know if we're going to mention that at any point on the pod, but yeah, I'm starting to feel a bit shaky.
We could mention it here, I think, and I want to look at Chelsea this season in our own right. I think Arsenal are ahead of schedule versus us. They are, they're a fantastic team, and they are the product of 6, maybe 7 years of hard work and recruitment and stability on the manager front. Chelsea's been its own roller coaster, and I think we just got to look at it narrowly through our own lens. And I think from my perspective, the expectation off the back of the summer was very much you've won the World Cup, mounted title challenger. I think we're ready for that.
Pretty interesting, as you say, Huw. Potentially a little bit of negativity had started to creep in. Definitely, the outlook has changed these past kind of couple of weeks, couple of big wins. We've all to play for. We're alive in all competitions. Third place, 6 points of Arsenal, with the chance playing them in a couple of weeks' time to rein that into within 3. But equally, the kind of precarious nature of the table, we're 3 points off 10th. So very much all to play for. Let's say love the stat introduction there. I've also saw that we're leading all teams on XG. So does Maresca deserve a little bit more credit? We've seen kind of lapses, naivety, red cards to blame, stupid goals. I do ultimately think a subset of that is down to him as the manager, but you say promising signs. Moving on, let's discuss kind of the dust starting to settle. Let's have a revised view of that summer transfer window. What are your thoughts, Huw?
Once again, I'm going to be the positive voice of the group. You boys are going to
Love it.
We
you're
need
going to have
that.
to tell me.
We need that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone needs to do it at Chels, right? I think I think it's a solid window. I'm going to say 7 out of 10 again. I think I was looking. The net spend in the window was 6.9 million euros in the sink, which I think is pretty good when you look at Joao Pedro in there, crucial to the Club World Cup win. Not the most prolific striker, but you'd hope that Delap would dovetail in him in a good way. You've then got, of course, Steve. I know he was bought a few windows ago, but his impact being this window, I've counted him here. Old Esteval, who like going to the games, watching him is an absolute pleasure. I think Garnacho's starting to look good. Gittins probably is my sort of like, I'm still a little bit yet sort of not decided on him yet, but if anything, he's closer to that, not rating him at the moment. But I think there's still a player there, right? You saw it with that goal against Wolves. There's moments. I think it was the Ajax game where I quite liked him in there. So he's an option. I think Buonanotte I'm not bothered by, and like Hato and Asugo, I think the jury's still out for me. So yeah, I think it's good. I would say, I know a lot of people have said Mr. Goalkeeper, Mr. Centre Back, right, in that window. And I would have agreed with them. But the Belgian kid, Mike Penders, we've got at Strasbourg, I've seen some clips of him. And now, call me a little Twitter highlights merchant, but
Love it.
that kid can play with the ball. And then they've also got the Argentinian kid, Anselmino, who's at Dortmund, and the Dortmund fans have been loving him, and they're not easily pleased, right? So yeah, I think for me, solid window, 7 out of 10.
I'm liking the enthusiasm for you. Let's keep it that way. I'm going to agree. I like a lot of the players individually. I love Garnacho. I think, Ryan, you and I both thought Ashley, despite all the kind of fanfare hysteria, 21 years old, 40 million, bit of a snip in this market. I think, say, Gittins jury out potentially.
I've given Gittins a 3 out of 10. I can't really understand, given the money we've spent, the massive outlay of what is it, 55 million, basically what we sold Madueke for, who was, well ahead in his development and ready made to go into that Arsenal squad. So an equivalent outlay. And he just doesn't look ready. He looks raw. He looks nervous and scared. And even in these games in our B team against the likes of Qarabag and Ajax, he's not exactly ripping it up. So I've given him a 3.
I do have to say, Ryan Gittins on a 3. He's young. He's like 20. He's got minutes in the Champions League before, minutes in the Bundesliga. I do understand that. He's got experience somewhat, but he's still like 20, 21.
I'm willing to die on the till. I'm willing to die on the till. He wasn't starting for Dortmund when we signed him. He was basically extricated from the squad. It just doesn't make sense to me. I like him. His goal against Wolves was in the Carabao Cup was like ridiculous and Puskas worthy, as we said in a previous pod. I just see him, and I don't think there's anything special, and I'm not seeing any green shoots of recovery game by game to justify 55 million. It just seems mad to me. But I'll give him more opportunities. I'm willing to give him time.
Absolutely, give it time, and as long as Garnacho is performing, no complaints from me. I think potentially our Joao Pedro R9 reincarnate take was a little bit premature. Are we now looking at, is he a false 9, whatever? And then, as you say, Delap, a little bit of a freak injury. Let's hope he can get back to kind of the levels we were hoping for from him. My gripe is that it's yet more churn. I don't hate the use. I like the individual players, but yet more churn season in, season out. How many sides looking back have won Premier League titles with a completely new, fresh forward line with different combinations needing to gel and not kind of frittered points in those early stages?
I think
Agreed.
you got to remember season. I would say it's season 3, season 2.5, really, of the completely redefined and targeted transfer approach, which is these young players, talented players who are sort of data freaks and they outline their position, and they've been bought for the Maresca way.
Right, final point. Let's have revised expectations, predictions for the season, including potentially a hot take.
So I've split these out. So I've gone by competition for my predictions for the season, and then I've got 2 hot takes. I'm yet to decide. I believe both of them, but I'm yet to decide which one's I'm gonna rinse myself with on the pod. So Carabao Cup, I think this could be a final here. I think Maresca's got a little bit of that gene in him that Tuchel definitely has, which is for the big games, he can set it up. Give him a week, a little 2 week prep. He gets in there, does the tactical analysis, sets us up. Sort of PSG, seen it with Liverpool, could say sort of with Spurs. That might have just been Spurs' capitulation, but I think Maresca's got that gene, right? So I think Carabao Cup, we've got Cardiff. That should be a run in the mill game. We're then on the same side of the draw as City and Brentford. I saw this City performance against Liverpool, but I still think I still think you can beat them. There were chances that Liverpool had. I think you can beat them. I think Liverpool made them look good. So yeah, I'm saying Carabao Cup final.
I agree. I don't think the issue with Maresca is how he sets us up in these big games. For us in domestic cups so far, it's been how he perceives and approaches them. Last year we had, I think it was Newcastle away in the second or third round in the Carabao Cup, and he put a complete, I think it was ten changes to the lineup from the previous Premier League game, which, you simply cannot turn up to St James's Park and do and expect to win. And then I seem to recall was it Brighton in the FA Cup in sort of January time, first or second round, very late performance, just nothing seemed right, and we were nowhere near a Wembley day last year. If we can get there, we've got to dispatch Cardiff and we've got to beat Man City over two legs. It's a tall order, but I believe if we get there, we can see us lifting a trophy at Wembley this year.
I think bang on. I think the criticism last season, definitely kind of that approach to the domestic cups. For me, an expectation is at least a domestic cup win this season. As we've kind of covered, that Carabao Cup draw is favourable. Let's hope that now we're in the latter stages, we do take that seriously. Again, Maresca making 5.7 changes at every match day. Is it his call? Is it sporting director's call to keep market value? Who knows? But I think a bare minimum this season has to be a domestic cup. And onto the league, I'm going to say again, I wanted a title charge post Club World Cup. I think the Colwell injury and then the Cole Palmer injury probably makes that unlikely, but I'm very much shoot for the stars, kind of land on the moon. Let us be kind of second, third place and comfortable. I don't want a Champions League fight.
Yeah, on Premier League, I think I can't work out, and I like your opinion on this. I can't work out whether the general quality of the league is lower, and therefore that's why, as you've already mentioned, George, it's like 3 points between like third and 11th, isn't it? Or I can't work out whether it's a really, really strong middle pack and like one of the strongest middle packs you could see. When I look at individual player quality across those teams, I like if I delve into a Bournemouth, apart from like a Semenyo, I'm not that bothered by many players. There's no like massive star quality. But then if you look across those teams and you look how they play, how some of them set up, I think there's some good teams in there. So I want third in the Prem. That's where I'm hoping we get Champions League spot again. That was kind of my expectation start of this season. So I haven't really revised that or changed it. But I do think that middle pack in the Prem this year, I think they're a bit of a problem. Or everyone's useless. Either or. You take your pick.
I think the traditional top five within those clubs, the quality has dropped. But I think what we're seeing is exactly as you've said, Huw, the middle pack, the clubs, your Aston Villas, your Bournemouths, your Newcastles, your Brightons. There's no easy game. It spells danger for everyone every time you play them home or away. So you've constantly got to be on top of your game. And I'm going for top three this season as an optimistic target domestically because last year I think we finished, was it fourth or third? I think it was fourth actually on the final day after the win at Forest. You want to see, I don't think we're capable of a title charge, but you want to push at least one place up and get third place.
I think you're both absolutely spot on in terms of that kind of critical mass in the middle of the table. The difference for us kind of getting comfortably Champions League, able to focus elsewhere versus in another scrap, yet another year, for me, is how those players are set up mentally week in, week out. I'm hoping we've had that scare against Sunderland and going forward, we learn from that mistake. We remember that and we're jacked up from the get-go for all of those games each and every week.
I think the only area we've not covered is Champions League. What are our expectations there? I've said in the short term, I think we should be pushing for that top eight place to simply for the fact that we can ease the burden from a fixture perspective down the line, which we know is important given our injury and squad problems. We've got, I think it's Barcelona, Atlanta and Napoli to come, two of which are away fixtures, so it's not going to be easy. And we fumbled the away game at Qarabag, but I think that's got to be the target, hasn't it?
Yeah, it got to be the target. I do think in the Champions League, I think we won't get that top eight. I think we'll fall into that next band. Whereabouts, I'm hoping the top of that band. You've missed off Paphos from that list, Ryan, which should be
Paphos.
the guaranteed
Yeah,
3 points. But that I also thought that about Qarabag. I've got a ticket to Paphos, so yeah, that'll be a lively one for me.
yeah.
I'll be singing. I'll be the only one singing probably. I think we miss out on that top eight, but then I actually think with a renewed squad later on into the season, just before jumping on the pod, I saw some good news about Levi Colwill. Apparently his rehab's going well. We might see him back. Palmer's looking like he might be back for Barcelona, which is huge. I think I saw Benoit Badiashile in training the other day on a photo in the background. So I think if we can get the squad right for Barcelona, not saying we'll win, but put a good challenge in, put a good performance in, make the crowd up for it. And then that Napoli and that Atalanta game, I'd hope to get at least 3 points out of one of those games. I'll be
Great.
honest, not sure how they're doing this season, but those Italian clubs are always quite fun to face away in the
Mm.
Champions League, aren't they?
Well, we know about Antonio Conte's record in Europe. It's never been good, and I think Atlanta have just sacked their manager this week. So why not aim for the stars and get 6 points?
Absolutely. I think kind of Chelsea never do things easy. My expectation, yes, is we progress one of those top 24, but probably not top eight. In terms of kind of expectations, predictions, I am hoping give me a big crunch Champions League tie under the lights at the bridge, which we come through. So give me one of those big teams. Feed me a Bayern, a Barca, a Real Madrid, even say domestic, an Arsenal, a City. Feed me a win against one of those, a nice crunch match. Not expecting to win the Champions League. I'd love it. I think a lot of that is down to the draw, where we're at in terms of injuries, but feed me a couple of big, nice ties.
I'd rather avoid Bayern for now, if I'm honest.
My hot take is actually going to fall either in this season or next season, and the surprise for me is I've gone maybe slightly negative, but the Strasbourg boys seem to be on a bit of a bender at the moment, and I think my hot take is that Liam Rosenay, however you say his name, the manager over there, who seems like really good a manager, seen some dressing room videos from him. I think within the next 2 seasons, my hot take is he could be the Chelsea manager. I think Maresca maybe has a bit of a blip, could be a tough December, which we've seen with a lot of the last few managers. We've got a bit of a bad record over the month of December. Maybe it's a weak end to the season, underperforms with some star players. Maybe it's the start of next season where you've got Quenda coming in, you've got Penders coming in, and he just doesn't get it right. And then I think Liam's brought in from France, dropped in at the helm, and don't know how it will go, but I think that's my hot take, is that he's here with either by the end of the season or next season.
It's the beauty of the multi-club ownership, I think, and there seems to be a direct path for players and managers alike from Strasbourg to Chelsea, and he's doing everything he can to showcase his qualities currently as a manager there. And the charisma really shines through in those videos. I actually once saw him do a press conference live for Hull after a game at Norwich, which was he blew me away just with his articulate nature and the way he speaks about the squad. And I'm really happy to have him in the Blue Coat family, and would totally welcome him as manager one day if the stars align. It's another negative hot take. I am repeating my line from last week that Tyreek George is not good enough for Chelsea, never will be, doesn't have the technical or physical qualities to step up at this level. Scored a few goals this season, which I've totally respect and I've enjoyed. Capitalize on the good momentum and get 20 million for him in the January window. And I've seen some interest from him. I think it's Crystal Palace, Fulham. We know are historically interested. Get it done.
Not confident in this one, but I'd love nothing more for him to prove everyone wrong. And if he does, if he's here come the start of next season, I will buy a Tyreek George number 32 shirt with George on the back as my namesake. Final hot take from me is going to be a positive one. So just called up, I believe, yesterday. I'm going to go Trev Chalobah to force his way into that England 11 come the World Cup. So I think it's been a mixed bag, his form. It's been in tandem with kind of our form recently. think he's starting to grow in stature. I think it's a long season. He seems pretty durable. I know kind of He's had his issues. It's not clear who that partner's going to be. Is John Stones going to be fit? And finally, we know that Tommy T is a big Trevor Cella fan. So I'm
I've
going to go.
I've never seen any problems with his form, to be honest. I think the abuse he gets in the Chelsea fan base, well, the online Twitter fan base is frankly disgusting. I think he's fantastic, always against the odds, delivering fantastic performances, if not always amazing. And yeah, totally think he's capable of mounting a charge to be in the England starting 11.
Just to make sure I've got that right, George, you're saying starting 11, not squad. Because I like Trev. I think he's got a mistake in him, but that is a huge call.
It's a long season.
We're going to have it out over
Love
the
it.
pint, me and you.
Thank you all for tuning in once again this week. We'll be doing our utmost to keep you entertained during this dreaded international break once again, with another episode dropping next week in which we'll preview the fixture against Burnley on the Saturday 12:30 kickoff on 22nd of November, ahead of a huge week in which we'll be facing Barcelona and Arsenal at home as well. As ever, please do continue to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, as it helps us massively to keep growing the podcast. Thank you all, and we'll see you in a week.